bouncing our way through hour number 2 here on the Jake Feinberg Show, high above the Parisi Palace at 2919 East Broadway. Thank you so much for being part of the program today, and it's an honor to welcome back a friend of the program. This is my second interview with him already in 2015. Who knows how many more we have in store. Mr. Michael Shrieve, an honor to welcome you back, brother.
Thank you. Glad to be back, Jake.
I just wanted to address a health issue. How is your hand?
Oh, it's getting there. I had an incision made, but because I had something called trigger finger. It's where the finger, when you bend it, it gets stuck and it clicks, and it's very painful. And so I decided to get rid of that, and it's healing, and I'm playing, and it's going well. Thank you for asking.
Well, actually, it goes a little bit deeper. Just because, I mean, are you part of the musicians' union? I mean, have you been part of a union ever in a musical sense?
Yes, although I don't think I ever do any union gigs. You know, like recordings in L.A. or New York or Nashville or something like that happens. So it seems to have a minimal existence in my.
What I ask about is for other musicians. I mean, Dizzy Gillespie on his deathbed was like he wanted to create this program for health insurance for musicians. A lot of musicians who were broke, and I'm just wondering if you have insurance through that or not, or that's something else that needs to take care of that kind of surgery.
Yes, I had insurance.
Oh, good. All right, so
yeah.
Let me ask. So that track that we came in on was called Oracle. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, the track with Amon Tobin.
Well, say that one more time. How do you spell that?
Amon, Amon, or Amon Tobin, Tobin. I first heard this guy in a record he made, I think called Bricolage, years ago, and what it was kind of the way I thought of it. It was kind of like a collage of music. He doesn't even play an instrument, but he would sample stuff and then manipulate the samples and string things together and make music. And I especially loved what he did with drums, with jazz drummers that he would sample and stuff. Sure, of course, he shouldn't have been doing this, but it was just beautiful what he did with the stuff, especially drummers who played brushes, too. I loved. So I kept up with him, and I started getting interested in this stuff, in electronic music. Well, electronic music, I've kind of always been interested in electronic drums since the 70s, but come the 90s, when Square Pusher and these kind of electronica musicians were happening, I got into that. I really enjoyed it, and Amon Tobin was one of that kind of group, although now that I know he was very different than all those. So I kept after him, tried to see if we could do something together for quite a few years. I'd see him when he came to town, and we'd hook up and talk. But at one point, he was coming through town, and he had a few days off, so we went in the studio, and I just recorded a bunch of drums, a bunch of grooves, a bunch of sounds, all different kinds of things, like open, like a floor tom, 16-inch floor tom, or 18-inch floor tom, wide open, use that as a bass drum, just doing things with different sounds. And then he would later go back and he would manipulate the stuff and write music around it. And this is one of those pieces that came from that.
Okay, this is so you first met him in the 70s, or you met him more recently in like the?
Oh no, he's a young guy. He's he's younger than I am. Let's put it that way. So 90s, I met him.
Right, no, because I was going to say I was told my engineer I thought that track was from the same time period as the Henderson Band. I was like, this holds up. This sounds like contemporary music, so it makes more sense.
No,
okay, good.
Yeah, those were two complete separate.
Okay, well that's good to know. Okay, so this is really important, Michael. All it says somewhere, you get this pedestrian line. Michael Shrieve got into electronic percussion. When did that start with guys like Pat Gleason, and how and what did it mean to really, when you got into electronic percussion, what did that mean exactly, and what were you doing?
Well, I met two people, a father and a son, by the name of Etienne LeMay was the son, and Steve LeMay was the father. They were from Portland, Oregon, and I think they came up to me after a concert with Santana in San Diego, and they had a van out in the back, and they had made. Steve LeMay had designed, when I think of the first electronic drums, and they were called Impact Electronic Percussion. And in retrospect, of course, at this point, now you look at them and they look like they're really old, but at the time there was nothing like it. And I was fascinated with the idea of, for some reason, of electronic percussion. I mean, I think I don't even know if I knew Patrick Gleason at that point. We started working. I was familiar with his studio. I mean, the thing that we discussed the last interview with that Standard Oil recording was done at his studio, different for a recording. Not that he had anything to do with it at that point, but we knew each other. Anyway, I got into this company. In fact, so much I invested some money in it. And I used these, I think the first time I used this stuff was on, the solo album that I did after I left Santana, which never came out.
Mm-hmm.
One of the tracks of which I sent you. And that was a record that, believe it or not, I was singing on it. That was the main thing about it. I wanted to sing, and I did some instrumental stuff as well. And Patrick Gleason was on that. And Michael Henderson, and in fact, he was living with me at the time, and different people would come. Earl Klug did something on it. This was before he was well known, and he
Ray Parker Jr. Yeah, no, Ray Parker Jr.
Ray Parker Jr. I mean, he was in L.A. That happened because a friend of Michael's, I forget his name, did some orchestration on some of my tunes. I was very much into all the Motown stuff, and I was also into Sly Stone, and I don't know. It never came out. The record label said it was too ethnic and too electronic.
Too ethnic? What does ethnic mean?
Ethnic at that point meant R&B.
Okay. Unbelievable. Because Ellis Marsalis is the father of Wynton and Branford. He said that somebody made a deal back when they were called Race Records. There was some sort of legal, where they got to change the name to Rhythm and Blues. And then when Elvis started singing that stuff, they called it rock. It's just interesting. But it was too. Michael, the idea of you. What were you singing about? I mean, were you writing full on songs, or did you have an accompanist guy who wrote lyrics and you were writing music? How did that all work?
I wrote it all with Michael Henderson.
Oh, this is unbelievable.
For the most part.
Unbelievable.
And then there was a couple of tunes that were instrumental, like Sam Morrison, the sax player. And I sent you one of those. He wrote that one. And then there was a piece that I did with Patrick Gleason that was totally synthesized orchestration of a Stomu Yamashita piece. And this was before I met Stomu, but I loved him. See, that's what happened. Same with Amon Tobin with Stomu Yamashita. Same thing. I fell in love with his recordings, and I pursued him like crazy. And then I work with the people. I did the same thing with Evelyn Benny for years. And we met and we hung out. We almost recorded, but it never happened. I wanted her to work on my Drums of Compassion record, which is just about finished. Excuse me. At any rate, but I was singing like love songs. I was crooning. I even got one that was like a Barry White tune, but I didn't send that to you.
Michael Henderson was just waxing poetic on these. I just need to hear some of these Michael Shrieve vocals. I mean, to me, it's like so in Gleason's studio there was that drum set. Is that am I getting that correct? That's where you cut that Standard Oil recording?
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was there. Yeah,
that was there. Well, let's you like you said, you did send me a couple of tracks, and I wanted to play this tune. We'll stretch it out for a minute, settle in and listen, and we'll come back and break it down. Okay.
Okay. Which track are you going to play?
that's a surprise.
Okay.
Music on the Jake Feinberg Show, sponsored in part by the Amity Foundation Circle Tree Ranch since 1981, an internationally acclaimed, dynamic, and innovative teaching community engaged in human services, social, and environmental justice, located at 10500 East Tankerverde Road. Thank you so much to Dwight Bocage and everybody associated with the Amity Foundation. All right, Mr. Shrieve, I kept my family up very late last night playing that music, and
headphones, man, headphones.
But no, the kids got to hear it, man. They got to hear it. But I mean, are you okay? So please take us through that, and then I was Klug and Ray Parker Jr. both playing it. Can you take us through who was playing?
No,
go ahead.
On that particular track, it's myself on drums, of course, Michael Henderson on bass. You notice how wide open that bass is. It's not like any lines or anything. It's so great the way that he allows me to play it a lot. And I'm playing a lot. And just him leaving these whole notes open. Anyway, it just reminds me of Michael. Sam Morrison, the composer, and soprano sax. My brother Kevin Shrieve on guitar on that one.
Wow.
And Bayete Todd Cochran on Fender Rhodes, and Patrick Gleason on electronics. And also I can hear it all over the track, I'm using those impact electronic drums as well.
What do they sound like, so I can go back and listen to them?
They're kind of like little explosions, this particular piece. They kind of accentuate certain things around the busyness of my acoustic drums. But, yeah, that's it. Patrick Gleason and Todd Cochran, Bayete, Kevin Shrieve on guitar, Sam Morrison, Michael Henderson, and myself.
I would love if you could talk about the first time that you encountered, at the time he went by Bayete, but Todd Cochran. I found him and I did 2 really great interviews with him, and he had some beautiful things to say about you that I haven't transcribed yet, but I just wanted to know how you guys linked up originally, eventually fusing into the band Automatic Man.
I wish I could remember the first time I met him, or I know I heard his record. I think that's what it was. Right. I heard about him in San Francisco, that he was this young prodigy that Herbie Hancock had given his blessing to, and he was, he was one of those guys that was really kind of prodigy and brilliant, and he was probably late teenager even, and was playing with people like Bobby Hutcherson and Hadley Calloway, and he was the young blood coming up, and word was he had this brilliance. And so I got the record and I really enjoyed it, and that's the one with several others. I mean, we even did I think Free Angela from his record with Santana in our live performances. So it's on the Lotus.
Yeah, Worlds Around the Sun is what it's called. Worlds Around the Sun.
Right. Okay, that's right. With the sun and the 2 people in there.
They're kissing or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, so I heard about him, and I guess I must have gone and seen him play or something. I introduced myself, and we started hanging out, and he was really different, He was really different.
Right.
I really enjoyed him, and I think I took him to see, which would seem out of character musically,
right.
But I knew that he was open, even though he was in this this young, aware African-American period of the late 60s, early 70s, Todd Cochran to Bayete and, Mwandishi, and everybody was taking these names. But I knew he was young and open to the experiences of what were happening musically in the area at that time. It was all very much a part of the time where the African-American talented musicians were, digging their teeth into the jazz heritage and trying to create something new. And at the same time around the city, you had like jazz music, like The Fourth Way, with Mike Knock and Eddie Marshall, and you had what was the other one? Really John Handy. That was another group around that time that was unbelievable. With that guitar player, Jerry Hahn.
Yeah, right.
Man, I can't believe I'm remembering these names. And the drummer,
Don
Michael Clark.
Well, I think Mike Clark was with with Mwaddishi,
Yes.
but
Yes.
it was Don Thompson from Canada, I think, or something like that. But you know, Michael, okay, so you took him to what show? I would love to know what you took him to.
Okay,
Yeah.
I took him to Pink Floyd, The Wall.
Nice. Wow.
And it was just, we were sitting in the back and watching this whole, it was like performance art. And I was very much interested in, moving into electronic percussion. I was moving into computer graphics, and really I had a desire to meld these things together. And I wasn't a Pink Floyd fan. I wasn't a Zeppelin fan when I was coming up with Santana. I was pretty much a musical snob, to be honest. And I didn't get into these groups later and appreciate them, like, with the vibe that Pink Floyd created, or Zeppelin and the grooves. And I mean, now, but I did. This must have been like 75, 74, around there. Whenever they did that, I think it was the Cow Palace we went. And it was just kind of magical watching this thing really like big time performance art, the wall going up, and by the end of the show you saw nothing, and the concept was kind of brilliant. Anyway, I think we kind of talked through the whole show about possibilities and stuff, and just trying to do something. And he was already, I think, working on material outside of the realm. Of course, he was of the jazz realm. He was influenced by Jimi Hendrix, and he wanted to do something else with sound as well. He was playing clarinet, but he was also doing stuff with overdriving it so that it had a sustain to it, so it was like a guitar. And so he also had these brilliant composition chops, and he was very serious. And so that was the beginning of Automatic Man, and then we got Pat Thrall, and heard Pat from I'm not sure where. We started just putting it together, Everybody was... It's very much... I've been reading yet another Steve Jobs book, one that came out just last week, as a matter of fact, by a writer that used to write for Fortune magazine and Wall Street Journal and Business Week, and he became very close friends with Steve. And it makes me realize the passion that it takes when you do a startup, like when you do, Steve Jobs had many failures, but nobody could deny that working with him was always an exhilarating experience if you could take it. Well, when we put Automatic Man together, and it's the same with Santana. I mean, it's like you guys against the world,
That's right. That's right.
That's kind of the difference. It seems to me like a lot of the music today. It doesn't seem that the guys like go down in the trenches, and just work the stuff out. I mean, we rehearsed every day for 8 hours. I mean, we worked that stuff out and recorded it at my house, and it was serious business. We wanted to change the world. Now we didn't get the outcome that we wanted, but boy, that kind of intention and that kind of passion is what we had, and with Automatic Man, we were very serious about it.
You just you touched on something interesting. You said down in the trenches, or I mean, some people say that, I've gone after so many unsung session guys, and when I talk to them, they're like, man, Jake, you've been down in the sewers, like digging around in this. I mean, really getting dirty and really having to work things out as human beings. And to me, I'm asking you the question, not is there an over-reliance on digital music, but do people feel that sense of needing to just play their guts out with the kind of, with how easy things are? You can just put music together today, and then of course it all ties into the idea of saying, well, this person's making millions of dollars, but the music's not even good. I mean, that's part of the other issue is recognizing, really good quality stuff versus stuff that's just pop. But down in the trenches, that speaks to human relationships. That speaks to somebody like Michael Shrieve. I mean, you get somebody, you have to figure out how to not balance your ego, and today I believe it might be a little bit out of context or a little bit out of whack. I'd love to get your because I just felt like a lot of those, whether it was Freddie Hubbard or Hadley Callman or Malo or Santana or the Grateful Dead, or there was this idea of, it was maybe not us against the world, but it was us against uniformity. And I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, yeah, against uniformity. It's not that you want to be different to be different,
right?
But what you need to do is follow your gut, and
I don't think people trust their gut.
Because I just finished reading again in this book, Steve Jobs' famous commencement speech to Stanford University. It was a brilliant speech, and one of the things that he said is, you got to be patient and trust your instincts, and eventually, you'll connect the dots, and all of it is just like trying to follow your instincts and trying to move forward and find compatible people that share your vision and your mission and your passion. And there's nothing like that. I mean, it's heightened experiences in life that you remember. And sometimes it's those relationships where you're really working hard with people trying to put something together with a shared commonality, much like, soldiers who go to war. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to hear from people saying, "Oh, it's nothing like going to war." How could you ever know that?
Understand. I get it.
I know, I understand. But what I do understand is that it's meaningful to those people for the rest of their lives. That's why you see veterans wearing their uniforms at 70 years old. Why is that? It's because they've never been in a more focused and intense situation in their life than those days when other people's lives depended on you. And that's a heightened experience. And so people remember those. And it's in different variations of gradation, what that experience happens in people's lives. And it certainly happens in music when you play with other people, or you make a band, or you whether it's say like Miles with his young guys like Tony Williams and Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter, like those were young bloods, and they wanted to change the status quo.
Right.
Now they were playing jazz, but Tony was avant-garde. Miles loved that Tony was interested in the avant-garde, and Tony pushed Herbie, to go out there. So the whole rhythm thing changed, and Miles just let them go. But those guys were thinking they were changing the world,
and they changed my world. I mean, I think that I'm getting. I interviewed Bobby Hutcherson last week, and I was talking. How did he? I went after the blues, and he just said he was doing different. He was doing different stuff with him and Charles Lloyd. Like you talked about Forest Flower. But they were not doing the traditional 1-4-5. They were going off on different. And to me, this is. But I mean, with the electronic drum machine and just sort of automation and computers, some of that life. I mean, it ultimately. It comes down to trust and security, and for some reason, maybe you guys just didn't know any better, and you weren't all interconnected, and there just wasn't this, huge amount of just material just available. It just seemed like the leaders at that time were like Miles was willing to say, I know for a fact Dave Holland was like, he brought you into the band. Coltrane kept asking him, what do you want me to play? What do you want me to play? And Miles would just turn his back on him because he just wanted him to play he wanted him to play himself. He wanted him to be himself. He wasn't trying to micromanage. And, have you found yourself, you've played in so many different settings with, very high profile characters. By and large, were they all not micromanagers? I mean, I'm sure you've been in situations like that, but through your career, the leaders that you've been with, they're not micromanagers. Is that fair to say?
Well, it depends what the situation is. If I'm joining somebody else's vision, then they want to be clear of it, clear that, you're getting it. If it's not improvisational music for instance, and you're playing to the will of whoever's hiring you. I mean, my situations, I don't get hired a really lot. I mean, I've played with a lot of great people, but me following my different dreams and passions and groups, like whether it's Automatic Man or whether it's I don't know, other records I've done or the electronic stuff. It puts me out there as somewhat of a quirky individual, and it's not the guy that people call to come in and play this backbeat on this hit record.
Right, exactly.
Love it. But mind you, I wish they would, because I love that too. Just because I love, the stuff I love and that I choose to do myself and put out there, whether it's stuff like with Klaus Schultz and Stormy Monster. I love these interesting characters. That's what I'm attracted to. I'm attracted, and I don't care. Look at Amon Tobin. He doesn't even play an instrument. So it's not like when I say like get in the trenches. I mean, it's one thing to say, yeah, kids don't play anymore. But to tell you the truth, whether it's the drums or the trumpet or the computer or sounds, it's all just tools to say something. And I really kind of don't care how you get there, what means. That's why I love Amon Tobin, because he's so creative with what he has. I remember when I played some of his stuff for Bill Frisell, and Bill was like, whoa, and it was because it was some brushes,
Right.
And what he had done with it was different. But Bill knew where those brushes came from. He was like, that's Max Roach at the Village Vanguard or something like that, from this record, and it was like, whoa, man. He could appreciate what the person did with it, even though he doesn't play an instrument. And I feel that way too. I don't care, man. My kids turn me on to hip hop stuff, and while I may not like the content of the vocal, some of these grooves that are so spacious and they're all done with computers. But man, I can do them, and then I'll go out to the shed. I'll put this stuff on the headphones, and I'll try to play acoustic drums to those grooves and get the feel of what that feels like to play on a backing track like that. It doesn't matter to me. Like, it doesn't have to be a Canon high-end camera. It could be your iPhone, and it'd be the most beautiful photographs. It's what you bring to it. It's what your eye sees. It's what your ear tells you. It's what your heart feels, and however you can get it out there, that's your mission.
Just waxing poetic with Michael Shrieve right now. Let's take a listen. It's really beautiful. I mean, I don't know how I feel about that, but we can get into that in a minute. Let's listen to this tune, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Yeah, we're here on the Jake Feinberg Show, and Mr. Shrieve, what do you got for us, my friend?
What was that?
That was Go. That was you and Winwood and Stormy.
Oh.
A track,
what was the name of the track?
Track called Stellar.
Okay.
Yeah, you haven't heard that in a while.
I haven't heard it in a while. Honestly, I thought, oh man, poor Jake, he's put some on I'm not playing on.
No, this is absolutely you.
Yeah.
What? Let me ask you a question about this session that you may not remember, but the other one also with Morrison and Gleason and Henderson. You guys were all cutting it at the same time. Was there any overdubbing going on in either of these sessions that we listened to?
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, I would say that Patrick Gleason, all that stuff was overdubbed because the synthesis was monophonic at that time. It was just that big wall of a big emu thing he had, and modular synthesis. And it's hard for people to believe now, but you couldn't play two notes at the same time. That was polyphonic stuff that came later with like Yamaha and stuff. At that time, you had to program every single take, every track. So, for instance, for Pat to do a whole piece of orchestration of the Stormy Marshall piece, and then Sam Morrison played the melody on this, it's a beautiful ballad that I fell in love with. That's Stormy wrote. And so, I mean, for Pat to do that, I mean, it takes hundreds of hours, and so I'd say probably Kevin, my brother, Sam, Michael Henderson, myself, and Bayeke probably played. And the electronic drums and Patrick Lee's electronics were done later.
How did you when you were with Automatic Man, you moved to Great Britain? Did you meet Steve Winwood over there at the time?
I met Steve Winwood when I went over there to do Go. I went over there to do Go at the same time as Automatic Man. We worked it out. They were both on Island Records.
Right.
And so I brought the Automatic Man band over, and we lived over there. And I did Go first, and then everybody got settled in for Automatic Man, and that's where I met Steve Winwood for the first time. When I first approached Stomy Amashtal, what I wanted to do was avant-garde percussion music, which he was known for and which I loved. And he wanted to move in more into pop and rock area, and he had gotten Steve Winwood interested, and Klaus Schultz, who was a master synthesist from Germany, one of the co-founders of Tangerine Dream, and I wasn't even familiar with him. So when I met these people and saw what Stomu had in mind and heard Klaus's sounds, it was really something. So this was Stomu's vision, and that's where I met Steve for the first time. So, which I might add was a great honor for me. I mean, everybody knows Steve Winwood, and for me to be able to start working with him was a real joy.
Did you ever? I mean, obviously you worked it out so that you had both albums cooking, or both bands over there. But was there anyone stateside, regionally, even in the Bay Area or in Chicago, like that was doing avant-garde percussion that you would have gotten off on, like the Arts Ensemble of Chicago? I mean, I know Stormy was doing that, but was there anybody in the States that you could have accessed?
Well, I know there were some of the guys. Who was that? Don Moyer.
That's right.
Yep.
Amadou Don Moyer.
He was doing stuff, and I mean, I love the other drummers. I mean, it wasn't avant-garde, but some of the stuff that people were doing. I love Tony's stuff.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, man, I went crazy about Tony's percussion group with who was it? With oh
my God, I'm going to tell you right now. It was Ego, Lifetime. It was Warren
Benbow and
Warren Smith was on there, and
Warren Smith,
and Larry Young was on organ, and it was like, and there are other percussionists that I'm not even and then there was the whole M Boom thing too, with Freddie Waits and Max Roach and those guys on the East Coast. But
I was a big fan of later. I think it was probably later, but Boom, Max Roach,
M Boom, absolutely, yeah, sure, Joe Chambers and Freddie Waits, But see, they were doing. And would it have continue? But you really wanted to do avant-garde percussion with Stormy, but it really that Go album, what we just played, was more on the pop realm, really.
Absolutely, I wanted to do something completely different than that, and hope that Stomu, Yamashita, and I could do that at some point later. I mean, he went on to continue doing that. Now I think he's playing Sacred Stones.
Right.
So. And I like percussion ensemble music. I enjoyed percussion music, and I actively sought that. A lot of my records were percussion music, just because, that was my area. And so it wasn't so much I wanted to do avant-garde percussion music, but I wanted to do something with percussion. And the way Stomu did it, the first record that I found of him was in a record store in Berkeley, and it was a fold-out, gatefold, they call them, and there's this whole stage of percussion instruments and things like drums and marimbas and timpani, and this guy was leaping midair with his hair down to his halfway down his back and a timpani stick in his mouth and just leaping, and I thought, who is this? And that was Stomy Amashita on one of his records, and I bought several of his, and I used to just keep them on all night long, like let the record play over and over. I just loved him, and that's why I pursued him. Which is also further why I pursued Evelyn Glennie later too. And this Drums of Compassion record that I have coming out this year is me, like, being influenced by Stomu, who played like 14 drums in a semicircle standing up. I do that on on Drums of Compassion. And I also use Jeff Grinke as a synthesis, much like Klaus Schultz. And I play drum solos, but there's not beats. It's more like a flow.
Mm-hmm.
But then I put on Jack DeJohnette and Zakir Hussein and Ayrton, and I made it more, more earthy.
You are unbelievable. I have to ask you this question. When did you buy a water phone? When did you buy a water phone?
In the 70s. I can't find it anymore. I love that thing, yeah.
Did you buy it from Richard Waters?
Richard Waters, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Anyway, he rest in peace. He passed away. But I found this album like Stiletto, or there's an album that I found of yours, and it's called like Water Waves or something, and it's just you playing with the water phone, and it's just I can't find it now on the computer, but it's the most. I'm like, Michael was definitely tapping into the Gravity Adjusters expansion band and finding those water phones. But it's not in your house in Seattle right now.
Not the water phone, but I think you're talking about a record called In Suspect Terrain.
That's right. Yeah, thank you. And
that I did for Jonas Hellborg's label, and that was kind of a percussion record in some ways. But I basically went out in the woods in a cabin in Sweden, just myself, with a Linn drum machine and a tape recorder, and I wanted to play percussion stuff, but I wanted to also program the Linn machine, which was popular at this time in the 80s. And I wanted to use it. I tried to program it like Tony or Jack would play. And so, anyway, that particular piece you're talking about, yeah, that's on In Suspect Terrain. Now, Stiletto is a different record that I did with Mark Isham on trumpet and David Torn and Andy Summers on guitar and Thierry Gavelt on bass.
It was on Hellborg's. There's just when I saw that, it was just quite funny. I did want to address a couple of things. First of all, can you talk a little bit about what contemporarily this Drums of Compassion, with the genesis, the idea, and where it's at, and when it might be coming out?
Obviously I'm influenced by Stormy Moscow very much, and sometime in the 90s, I had moved to Seattle, and I used to go out and listen to music when the kids would be asleep, and I'd stay up and listen to music, or I'd go out and listen to live music. And I'd come home, and when I came home, like 2 in the morning, I would say, what kind of music, I would listen to music like choral music, and stuff like that, very chill. I wouldn't listen to heavy beat music. I'm trying to come down from, hearing these groups and stuff. So I thought, what kind of music would I make what kind of record would I like to make that I would listen to at this hour? And how do you do that with drums? And so I started really thinking about it, literally making notes, and I got a hold of, I put this kit together of the 16 drums DW made for me, and I got a hold of Jeff Grinke, the synthesist, who I really loved, and we started putting pieces together, and that's how that happened. And it was all done, and then I just thought, it sounds too new age, and I added these other guys as they came through town. Zakir and Ayrton were playing the Bumbershoot Festival. I asked them, and they did it, and I just saw Zakir the other day, as a matter of fact, and Jack and I were friends, and I asked him to do it when he was in town, and he did it. And then I just started kind of adding to it, so got some other interesting people too, and that Amon Tobin piece is going to be on that record as well. I think it's almost done. I think I just need to, start. It's been taking me forever. This record's taking many, many years. It's time to get the sucker out, and this is the year that it's going to happen. So,
good. No, I mean,
because but I hope within like 3-4 months tops.
Yeah, because when it does, we're going to have you back on the show so we can play some of this stuff. Did you just mention E.W. Wainwright? E.W. Did you say?
No, No, the Drum Workshop, the drum company.
Okay,
that,
I can never
built
keep
the drums.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got another record that's almost done as well. That it's with my band Spellbinder, which I'm really looking forward to. Which is more of a straight ahead, not straight ahead. I mean straight ahead for me, meaning it's songs, but it's instrumental, trumpet, organ, bass, guitar, and drums. And I just put a record out a couple months ago called Trilon with some really interesting people from Seattle, like Skerrick and some of the guys from Critters Bugging, and that's a very cool record too. Well, I like it. So this year there's going to be, I guess 3 records out. So I've got two more to go, and then the Santana stuff, which we are continuing to work on as well.
I wanted to ask you, I read somewhere, aside from bringing in, the Gene Krupa, Buddy Rich, Joe Morello, big band kind of swing to the Santana group, I read somewhere about you talking about bringing samba rhythms to Brazilian music into Santana. I was hoping you could extrapolate on that a little bit.
Yeah, I did. I fell in love with the Brazilian, bossa nova, the jazz bossa nova guys, and started trying to play that stuff, which was a natural extension, I thought. And also, for my personal sensibilities, the beauty of the Brazilian music and the melodicism of it, and the rhythm, that combined with the rhythm was, it's kind of everything I love. So I wanted to, listen to more of that. And so, yeah, I did bring that sort of things into it. I mean, we did a version of Jobim's Stoneflower, which I wrote lyrics for, and Carlos and I sang, and then a track on Borboleta that Flora sang on.
Oh, God.
And so, yeah, I mean, I remember being when we first went to Brazil with Santana and Rio, and we had done a bunch of stuff, and I went to bed earlier than other people. I think there was a party going on. I was at the top of the stairs, and I was awakened by this acoustic guitar playing this song, and I knew this song. It was written by a guy named Nonato Bozar. I forget the name of it, but it's like, I didn't remember, and I got up and I yelled down the stairs, I know that song. That's Nonato Bozar. Like nobody knows this stuff in my group. And the guy looks up and says, I am Nonato Bozar. Oh man, this is so cool. I'm in Brazil.
Well, as we go to Michael, do you have a little bit of time here? Can we go a little bit longer?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's play this track, and then we'll come back and break it down.
All right.
Back inside the Parisi Palace. It's 2:00 on Saturday afternoon here on the West Coast in Tucson and Seattle. Welcome back, Michael. I you just hit me to that track now. I mean, I'm going to be playing that every day now. What an unbelievable version of that tune, Stoneflower.
Oh, thank you.
How much? So, did you actually bring that to Carlos? Did you say this would be a good tune to do?
Yeah. I fell in love with Jobim and many others as well. But I think just one of the things that I've always enjoyed doing is writing lyrics to already existing melodies, and that was one of them that I just, while on the road, I started doing and getting really into it. I really go into it. I mean, I do that now too with Pat Metheny tunes and Bill Frisell tunes. I write lyrics, and so I don't know what I was thinking, if we should do it or what, because we don't sing, and it wasn't the kind of thing. It was kind of like Greg Raleigh was on his way out with Neil Sean, and it wasn't the kind of thing he sang. And so I don't know. We ended up doing it ourselves, Carlos and I, which didn't happen again.
It's so great. I mean, did any of those cats, when you were like Dom Romano or
yeah, I was completely into Dom Romano, and he also played with Weather Report too.
Exactly. And then the other cat is Saivuka.
Nana Vasconcelos. Now, there's another guy.
Who's that?
Who I really fell in love with, Nana Vasconcelos.
I don't know that name. Okay, so yeah, this was another Brazilian cat?
Yeah, Brazilian percussionist. He made beautiful solo albums, and one in particular that was like a concept album that I just fell in love with. I'll have to look it up and see what it is, but he's another one that's like real shaman type guy, you know?
I mean, you're much more in being in Seattle, which is, I mean, really kind of way ahead of the rest of the United States in some ways, on a lot of different issues. How do you, was it the time when Airto and was coming up in Saivuca, Zakir came to the States? Was it so new, this wave of immigrants that were having a chance to really play and bring ethnic instruments in? Is that what was so intoxicating about it? And then now, how have those sounds advanced? How has bossa music increased today? How has Indian music advanced today? How has it become different, or how has it grown in your mind?
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, Indian music is, it's been around
timeless
for centuries. Yeah. So, like, for it to advance, it doesn't really advance.
Right.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah, right.
What happens is the young Indian musicians are now familiar with so much more music from around the world, and they're the ones that are branching out. I mean, even Zakir, when his father left him with Mickey Hart, was in the most unique of situations. His father had such foresight and vision for his son's growth, knowing that he had the basics of the Indian vocabulary, drum vocabulary, rhythm vocabulary, but put him in the hands of the Grateful Dead's drummer. And I mean, just that move alone kind of changed music, because Zakir, while a master of the traditional form, is one of the most open people musically that you'll ever find.
Absolutely.
And, Airto's that way, and, the world became smaller in a lot of ways. There was another drummer that I really enjoyed, a European guy, I think maybe Swiss, or named Pierre Favre, and he had an album in the 80s called Singing Drums. And so I love these guys that kind of had a vision for placing the drums in a musical environment that was not the normal type of space,
exactly,
but still very compelling.
It's well articulated. The Carlos is very complimentary to you about how much you brought to the table, how much you educated him. I would like to know about what Carlos did for you. I mean,
the thing is, I think with me, with Carlos it was like we were meant to be together, because what he was searching for, he had that same, and still does, by the way, the same sort of searching, for the right note and the right tone, and a master of melody. And he's like an encyclopedia of melodies, and still, I like to say that Carlos's musical roots are very deep. It's a deep well that he draws on, because he listens to so much music from around the world. He's like a sponge, so he's got a real sense of melody, and that melody combined with his intensity. I loved playing music behind it. I love being the drummer behind it. So, I mean, the reason I look like I'm playing when I play is not because of the drums, it's because of the melody. And then I get to be on this river behind it, keeping the rhythm. But I love the melody. So Carlos always brought that. And we always shared an intensity in our listening habits. We were all over the place. And I think that he and I found in each other someone who they could share that intensity and that hunger and that thirst for what was going on, what was coming out. Like when Miles was doing Bitches Brew and stuff, we were just all over it. And so everything that was happening at that time, we loved. we soaked up. And we also would turn each other on to, all kinds of other things. I mean, we were big fans of the work Sergio Mendes was doing back then. He was really doing some very nice stuff. All kinds of little gems of albums that we find. I remember this one record by Michel Colombier that we both loved. What was the name of that?
Just let me get.
We would take little bits off of those things, and we would put them in our show. We would take bits, and then we would musical bits, and we would put them into our live show, like as a transitional piece or this or that, and it made for a very colorful tapestry and weave of a live set, musically. So I mean, Carlos, he still moves me when he plays. I love that he loves and is so committed to the music, and so he brought that to me. It was really like a recognition, like a soul recognition.
It's one of those things that actually is probably beyond words. It was just meant to, in some ways, it was meant to be. I wanted to ask you as we wrap up part 2 here with Michael Shrieve. Who was your guru? You had a spiritual guru at a certain point. I did. Yeah.
Carlos and I went guru shopping together.
I know because listen, McLaughlin and I spent a lot of time talking about the influence that Sri Chimnoy had on him, and I talked to
yes, I heard that. That was great.
Talked to Felix Cavallari about his guru in New York saved him when he was with the Rascals, and so now I'm asking who you went shopping and who'd you pick up?
Oh yeah. Who's the guy from the Rascals?
Felix Cavallari, the organ player.
Felix and I had the same guru. I mean,
wow.
So
wow.
What was happening was. It was rock and roll. It was crazy. There were a lot of drugs. There was there's this. We could see people like, kind of roadkill, falling left and right.
Right.
And at the same time, there was this new music coming, like from the jazz side, like Miles and Weather Report, and so that kind of to us that took over where the rock music would let us down, and so that led us in a direction that thought, oh boy, here's where the water is. Here's where the well is. And let's go in a positive way so that... And also, of course, John McLaughlin had his guru, and we were both reading Paramahansa Yogananda like on a daily basis. And we were searching for something spiritually, no doubt. We also wanted to save our lives, too. And I've always had a bent towards that. I was going to be a Catholic priest when I was, 8th grade. So, and I wanted to be a missionary, and I wanted to travel, and I wanted, then I got kicked out of school, and so that never happened.
Right.
But I've always had this bent towards a spiritual side. So I went with Carlos. Carlos and I went, I remember it was like the day before going on a European tour, and we went out to see Sri Chimnoy, the two of us. And it was really interesting. It was amazing. I mean, the whole room kind of turned white. He was sitting on this pedestal, and we were in front of him, and we started meditating, and it was just like this white light. But I had done enough reading to say, when you find your guru, you know it. That's all there is to it. You don't think so much. And so that was an amazing experience. And Carlos and I got back in a taxi, went back to the city, from Queens, and he said, man, that was really heavy. I think I found my God,
Right.
And I said, oh, that was really incredible. But something tells me I got to keep looking.
Wow, cool.
So
that's cool.
Carlos went and did that. And then I later met up with Swami Satchidananda.
It's Satchidananda.
Satchidananda, yeah.
Saraswati, yeah.
And, yeah. And he's also the guy that spoke at Woodstock. And
oh, I didn't realize that.
He and I, he seemed like a friendlier, user-friendly guru. His focus was on yoga, the physical yoga as well as everything else. I just knew right away that this was my guy, and we established a relationship that was really one of the most meaningful things in my life. I'd call him from all over the world, like Japan, and he would take my call, and we would talk, and he would tell me where to go, what temples have the highest frequencies, or this garden, and where the vibration that I'd go, and it was really something. And then I faded out of that for some reason. I was very much into all of it, and I'm very grateful for all of it as well.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, it's like, it's kind of also about altering, like you said, there were really hard drugs that were leaving people roadkill. And so it was, for McLaughlin, he said it best, and I think that Carlos and you would agree, was altering consciousness without chemicals and finding ways to transcend. And then ultimately, you try to develop your own path, which I think you've done what you've done quite well. Well, final question for you, Michael. And I just think it's really important. How have you dealt with? How did you deal with fame? People want to talk about. I asked Maria Moldauer the previous hour, and she was talking about, how to get somewhere by just purely going at it from an artistic point of view and not going for the fame. But once you become famous, in this day and age, what is your advice to somebody who just hits the lottery musically or in any entertainment capacity? What's your advice for them to stay centered? Because Lord knows it's different than that Woodstock time.
Yeah, nowadays it's just really unbelievable, and we have such a celebrity-centric society. So there are, I think a lot of the focus coming from both the entertainers and the industry and the people listening to the music, which is it's not so much about music, it's like a lifestyle thing. Right. And also a lot of the lifestyle that is being put out there is, I think, really negative, Mm-hmm. Let me put it this way. A lot of the rapper stuff is really negative. Let's put it that way.
Right.
There's a lot of reasons why I think it's I have such admiration for some of them and not others, just because this whole thug life and money and diamonds, and it's just going to lead you nowhere in the end. It's just going to lead you nowhere. So you've got to have some sense of balance and some sense of yourself, and know that all this stuff is passing.
Right.
One of the blessings and one of the hardest things in my life was that I had success at such a young age. I mean, at 20 years old, I had already done Woodstock and was well known and this, that. That's been a real struggle for me in a lot of ways, because people just know me for that. And so half my life I'm fighting, like, oh, have you heard this? Have you heard this?
Right.
And then it took me quite a while to just relax into it and say, you know what, just shut up, say thank you, glad you liked it, and be grateful that you did something that people really enjoy.
That's right.
Still.
That's right.
But keep working on the other stuff, just don't worry about it. Just follow the path that you need to follow and be grateful for that rather than resentful of it, which is ridiculous. But people don't know the mixed blessing that something like that is, when you're successful so young. And so that carries its own burden along with the blessing of it. And the trick is to find the balance in all areas of your life and career. I've normalized myself very much over the last 20 years, let's say. Just kind of first of all, I don't want to be like some rock star thing. I don't want to be what's the word? It's too normal for me, It's like punk in the 80s in New York. When you I came out to Seattle, you'd see all the people in the East Village down there, and you come out to Seattle like 10 years later, and they're dressing like the punk people did 10 years ago, and I'm thinking, you know what? You all think you're so cool, and it ain't about any of that,
Right.
It's just not. It's what you got going inside, what you do with your stuff. But everybody's searching all the time, and we're all searching all the time in our life. And hopefully we learn from, as you grow older, you're supposed to grow wiser as well. And I think in the end that to realize that you can start that early and grow wisdom early is a really valid point of view and a valid way to approach your life, is gather wisdom young.
Right, and you, more often than, I think a lot of people, I mean, for me, I'm not a big voracious reader, so I've tapped into you guys and your generation for that wisdom, and I encourage my students as well, in any capacity, whatever their passion is, to go seek wisdom, not from a book, but from real people who have been through it, because I just feel like, especially now, you hit that video, like you said in our first interview, that Woodstock thing, it was covered, it was chronicled. But nowadays, someone hits it, and you're just all of a sudden given everything. You're given all this material stuff, and that I know you weren't given cars and houses, and I mean, you fell, like you said, it was just a natural progression, but that people also don't know the double-edged sword that comes with that fame. And I think that it's easy to talk about how to get there. That's the hard part. But once you get to that mountaintop, then you realize how much bigger the mountain actually is. And you just got to keep going. And so to be able to hear that from you, and I talk to a lot of cats, and they really established people, Todd Barkin and other people like that. And they say, well, you're friends with Michael Shrieve. I mean, there's a mystical quality to you, man, that a lot of people are really interested in who you are, because I think you've just stayed grounded yet successful and sustained yourself through these years without, popping off or doing some rap video, What else can I say?
Well, never say never. I might release my vocal album from 40 years ago. You never know.
Right.
I might start the new phase of my career like Michael Shrieve did, Barry White style.
Barry White,
so
yeah, no,
you never
and
know.
we'll just get those. Let's get those 3 albums out first this year, and we'll go from there, my friend. So,
all right.
Hey, man.
Okay,
thank you, brother. Good to talk to you, man.
Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Be well.
All right. Bye. The Jake Feinberg Show. We'll do it all again next week. Thanks to Oscar Baca. See you later.
But I don't understand. I just like to play the blues. It's not all the money that I want. I just like to play the blues. And I like for everybody to get together and all of us play the blues. Let's have a good time. Because blues is where it's at. I'm telling you, I love it. I can't help but play it. So when you wake up in the morning,
You're on a gig.
and ain't got no money, or no gig, whatever you call it, you ain't got nothing but the blues no way, baby. Or either your old lady gonna do yagging you and arguing with you, telling you what you get up and do something. And go to the steel mill, and you know you're gonna see, and that's usually the blues too. So sometimes you really don't know what to do, and when you get worried, all you can do is reach and grab your harmonica and try to play the blues a little bit. Here's the blues.
Here we go.